Introduction. Mia Reynolds had always considered herself a devoted wife and mother. At 36, she had built a seemingly perfect life in the quiet, affluent suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. Her husband, Daniel, was a successful financial advisor, and their two children, Olivia and Ethan, were thriving in one of the best private schools in the city. On the surface, they were the textbook definition of the American dream: a beautiful home, luxury cars, and frequent vacations to exotic locations. But as they say, perfection is often an illusion. Mia had spent the last 15 years of her life playing the role of the ideal wife. She had sacrificed her career in journalism to be a stay-at-home mother, dedicating herself to her family's well-being. However, as the years passed, an unsettling feeling of emptiness crept into her heart. The passion in her marriage had dwindled, replaced by routine conversations about mortgage payments, school schedules, and Daniel's exhausting work trips. He was always busy, often working late nights and missing family dinners, and Mia began to feel like a ghost in her own home. Then came the moment that changed everything. It started innocently enough: a social media message from an old college acquaintance, Lucas Harper. Lucas had been her first love, a charismatic and adventurous man with whom she had once dreamed of traveling the world. He had disappeared from her life after graduation, choosing a path of entrepreneurship that led him to build a successful tech company in Silicon Valley. Seeing his name pop up on her screen after all these years sent a rush of excitement through her veins. "Mia, it's been forever. How are you?" the message read. What followed was a whirlwind of online conversations that quickly turned into late-night phone calls. Lucas was everything Daniel no longer was: attentive, charming, and full of life. He made her laugh, reminded her of who she used to be before marriage, and motherhood consumed her identity. He spoke of his travels, his successes, and his regrets, including letting her go all those years ago. Mia convinced herself it was harmless, but deep down she knew she was walking a dangerous line. When Lucas suggested meeting in person during one of his business trips to Atlanta, she hesitated, yet the temptation was too strong to resist. One afternoon, under the guise of a girls' lunch, she met him at an upscale hotel bar downtown. Seeing him in person, looking even more handsome and confident than she remembered, made her heart race in a way it hadn't in years. What started as a casual lunch turned into a lingering touch, then a stolen kiss in the elevator. Before she knew it, she was in his suite, giving in to a passion she had long buried. What she didn't know was that this was the beginning of her worst nightmare. Chapter 1. A Dangerous Game. Mia's affair with Lucas started like an exhilarating dream. They met in secret, exchanging whispers and glances that set her soul on fire. He made her feel alive again, like the vibrant woman she had once been before marriage dulled her spark. Every text from him sent a thrill through her body. Every rendezvous felt like a forbidden escape from her mundane existence. She told herself she deserved this. She had spent years being the perfect wife, the perfect mother, sacrificing her dreams and desires for the sake of her family. What harm could a little indulgence do? But as the weeks turned into months, the excitement of the affair began to shift into something more complex. Lucas was no longer just an escape. He was becoming a necessity. She found herself checking her phone constantly, craving his messages more than she cared to admit. The guilt of deceiving Daniel gnawed at her, but the thrill of Lucas's touch outweighed her conscience. Until the warning signs began. Lucas started asking for favors, small at first. He needed a short-term loan to cover an investment hiccup. He claimed it was temporary, promising to pay her back within weeks. Mia hesitated, but he reassured her, reminding her of how much he loved and trusted her. Against her better judgment, she transferred the money. Then he asked for more. Each time, he had an excuse: a bad business deal, a delayed investor, an urgent payment that couldn't wait. And each time, she convinced herself it was fine. After all, he had promised to return every cent. But deep down, an uneasy feeling began to settle in her stomach. Meanwhile, Daniel started noticing changes in her behavior. She was more distracted, more protective of her phone, more distant. He tried to address it, asking if everything was okay, but Mia brushed it off. She couldn't let him see through the cracks. Then, one evening, as she sat in bed scrolling through her messages, an unfamiliar number popped up. "Mia, I hope you know who you're dealing with. Lucas isn't who he says he is. Be careful." A chill ran down her spine. Was this a joke? A misunderstanding? Her heart pounded as she reread the message, unsure of what to believe. Little did she know, she was about to uncover a truth far more devastating than an affair, one that could ruin everything. Chapter 2. Shadows in the Reflection. The days following Olivia's unsettling discovery were filled with a gnawing unease. Every smile Daniel gave her felt rehearsed. Every moment he spent on his phone felt stolen. Her heart had always trusted him, but now doubt had lodged itself in the back of her mind, whispering incessantly. Determined to uncover the truth, she began paying closer attention to his routine. He had never been a man of secrets, or so she thought. But suddenly, late-night work meetings were frequent. Text messages came with a guarded screen tilt, and his usual affectionate touches felt distant. One evening, as Olivia sat alone in their dimly lit living room, she made a decision. She needed clarity, even if it hurt. She scrolled through their shared home computer. Daniel was careful, too careful. His emails were clean, his search history wiped. But there was one thing he hadn't considered: their shared cloud storage. With her fingers trembling, Olivia accessed the folder that housed their vacation photos, work documents, and casual snaps. It was always their safe space, a shared digital memory bank. But as she scrolled, a hidden folder caught her attention, one labeled Work Docs. Her heart pounded. Daniel wasn't the most organized person. He never named things so precisely. With a deep breath, she clicked. Images filled the screen. A woman, brunette, striking features, a smirk that spoke of something forbidden, photos of candlelit dinners, a hotel suite overlooking the skyline, stolen moments of intimacy. Olivia's breath hitched as the weight of reality sank in. The timestamps were recent. The betrayal was fresh. Tears blurred her vision, but she refused to break. Not yet. She copied the folder onto a flash drive. If she was going to confront him, she needed undeniable proof. That night, Daniel came home as if nothing had changed. Olivia studied his face, the face she had loved for a decade. She saw the remnants of the man she married, but also the traces of the man who had lied to her. "Long day at work?" she asked, her voice steady. Daniel nodded, loosening his tie. "Exhausting. These projects are killing me." She smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "You should show me some of your work sometime." He hesitated, just for a second, but then chuckled. "You'd be bored to death." Maybe, she thought. Or maybe I'd find out just how much of a liar you really are. That night, Olivia barely slept. The sheets felt like a battlefield, each inch between them a testament to the growing chasm. Morning came with cold realization. She needed more than just proof. She needed a plan. Determined, she reached out to the one person who had always had her back, her best friend, Claire. Over coffee, Olivia laid out the evidence, each photo a dagger to her trust. Claire's eyes darkened. "That son of a—" "I don't know what to do," Olivia admitted, fingers clutching her coffee cup as if it could anchor her. "Do I confront him, pretend I don't know, walk away?" Claire leaned forward. "You need to be smart about this. If he's lying about an affair, what else is he hiding?" That thought unsettled Olivia. Infidelity was one thing, but deception, manipulation, it made her question everything. Over the next few days, she played the role of the oblivious wife. She smiled when needed, laughed at the right moments, but underneath, she was watching, waiting. Then an opportunity presented itself. Daniel left his phone on the kitchen counter as he showered. It was unlocked. Olivia hesitated, then seized the moment. Her hands trembled as she navigated to his messages. The name wasn't saved, just a number, but the conversation made her stomach turn. "Miss you already. Last night was incredible. Can't wait for our next trip." Rage, heartbreak, disbelief, they all warred within her. She wanted to scream, to hurl his phone against the wall, to confront him right then and there. But Claire's words echoed in her mind. "Be smart about this." Taking a deep breath, Olivia took photos of the messages with her own phone. If there was one thing she had learned, it was that liars always tried to twist the truth. She wouldn't give him that chance. That evening, she watched Daniel as he sat across from her at dinner, chatting about his day as if he weren't living a double life. Olivia had always been a believer in love, in trust. But now, she understood something darker. People wore masks, and, sometimes, the person sleeping next to you was the biggest stranger of all. She would wait. She would gather more. And when the time was right, she wouldn't just confront him. She would make sure he never saw it coming. Chapter 3. The Web of Deception. The weeks after my initial suspicion felt like walking on a tightrope over a chasm. I couldn't confront Ethan without proof, but the weight of my doubt was suffocating. I found myself analyzing his every move, scrutinizing every text, every late night at the office, every subtle change in his behavior. Was he always this distant, or had I simply not noticed until now? One evening, I decided to take matters into my own hands. If there was something to uncover, I needed to find it myself. I waited until Ethan was in the shower before carefully unlocking his laptop. My hands trembled as I navigated to his emails, half hoping to find nothing. At first glance, everything seemed normal. Work emails, newsletters, some conversations with colleagues. But then I saw it. An email chain with a name I didn't recognize. Vanessa. My stomach twisted as I clicked. The messages were brief, but intimate. They talked about stolen moments, about missing each other. One particular message sent my heart into my throat. I can't wait to see you again this weekend. I need to feel your touch. Counting down the days. Weekend. He had told me he was attending a work retreat. I barely had time to process my emotions before I heard the water shut off. In a panic, I closed the laptop and rushed back to bed, pretending to read a book. My mind raced. Confronting him now wouldn't be wise. I needed more information, something he couldn't deny or twist into a misunderstanding. Over the next few days, I played the role of the unsuspecting wife. I asked about his weekend plans, watching his face carefully. He lied so effortlessly, telling me about workshops and networking events. It made my skin crawl. I reached out to a private investigator the next day. It felt extreme, hiring someone to follow my husband, but I needed to know the truth. The investigator, a woman named Dana, was no-nonsense and efficient. "Give me a few days," she said, "and I'll have answers." Those days were the longest of my life. I barely ate, barely slept. When the email from Dana finally came, I hesitated before opening it. My breath caught as I clicked on the attached photos. There he was, Ethan, holding hands with a woman who was not me. They looked happy, carefree. The final photo made my blood run cold. Him kissing her on the lips, pulling her into his arms as if she were his world. I closed my laptop, staring blankly at the wall. It wasn't just an affair, it was a double life. I knew I couldn't keep this to myself any longer, but I needed to be smart. If Ethan had been deceiving me for this long, who's to say he wouldn't try to manipulate the situation further? I needed undeniable evidence, and more than that, I needed a plan. My hands clenched into fists. He thought he was playing me. But he had no idea what I was capable of. I wasn't just going to expose his lies. I was going to make sure he regretted every single one of them. I began my preparation carefully. I documented every suspicious transaction from our joint accounts. I retrieved old messages, captured screenshots, and forwarded them to a secure folder. I even played nice, pretending nothing was amiss, just so I could get closer to him and learn more. Every piece of his deception would be used against him. Then an opportunity arose. Ethan had scheduled a weekend trip, another supposed work retreat. Only this time, I wasn't going to sit at home and wonder. I was going to follow him. I packed my bags lightly, took a separate rental car, and drove 2 hours behind him. The address Dana had given me led to a secluded beachside resort, the kind of place Ethan and I used to dream about escaping to together. Except this time, he wasn't alone. I sat in the car, watching from a distance as he stepped out, grinning, his arm around Vanessa's waist. They laughed, walking inside as if nothing else in the world mattered. My stomach churned, but I refused to break down. Not yet. Not until I saw the entire picture. That night, I checked into the hotel under a fake name. With a scarf covering my hair and sunglasses shielding my face, I blended in. No one would recognize me. I followed them at a distance, watching as they sat by candlelight, sipping wine, oblivious to the storm about to hit their perfect world. I pulled out my phone, my fingers shaking. I had the final piece of evidence, a video, proof that he wasn't just cheating, he was investing in another life, another woman, while still expecting me to be his devoted wife at home. I walked up to their table, heart pounding. Ethan's eyes met mine, his face draining of color. "Surprised to see me," I said, my voice calm even. Vanessa looked between us, confused. "Who is she?" she asked. Ethan stammered, but I didn't give him the chance. I turned the phone screen toward her, playing the video of them walking hand in hand into the resort. Her eyes widened, her face paling as she realized exactly what she had walked into. I looked at Ethan one last time. "Enjoy your dinner," I said before turning and walking away. The explosion came later. His frantic calls, his desperate attempts to explain, his pleading messages. I ignored them all. I had already forwarded the proof to my lawyer. By the time he returned home, I was gone. And so was everything he had taken for granted. He had built a life on lies, and I had no intention of being a part of it anymore. Chapter 4. Shattered Truth. The weight of betrayal settled in my chest like a stone. The pictures were undeniable proof, yet a part of me still clung to the foolish hope that there was some logical explanation, one that didn't involve my husband leading a double life behind my back. But deep down, I knew better. That night, I barely slept. My mind whirled with questions. How long had this been going on? Was I just a convenient part of his perfect facade while he played house with another woman elsewhere? And the most chilling thought, was he capable of more lies than I even imagined? But I wasn't going to let my emotions rule me. No, I needed a plan. If Ethan had been deceiving me so effortlessly, then I had to be even more cunning in my response. The next morning, I woke up before dawn and sat in front of my laptop staring at the images once more. Every fiber of my being burned with rage, but I forced myself to think strategically. Exposing him wasn't just about confronting him. It was about taking control of the narrative before he had a chance to twist it. I reached out to Dana, the private investigator, and requested more details. "I want to know everything," I told her, "not just about her. I want to know if there are others, where they meet, what he spends. I want a full picture." Dana agreed, and within days, she sent me a full dossier, bank statements, call logs, hotel receipts. Ethan wasn't just having an affair, he was spending money on this woman, money that was supposed to be ours. And then, I saw the detail that changed everything. Vanessa, the woman he was seeing, wasn't just some random affair. She was a con artist, a scammer. Dana dug deep and found out that Vanessa had a history of dating wealthy men, draining their accounts, then vanishing without a trace. My breath hitched. So this wasn't just about cheating. Ethan thought he was playing me, but in reality, he was the one being played. It took all my strength not to laugh out loud. The irony of it was almost poetic. Instead of confronting him immediately, I decided to turn the tables. I needed to expose both of them, him for his lies, and her for her scam. The setup. That evening, I prepared dinner as if nothing had changed. When Ethan walked through the door, he kissed my cheek, acting like the devoted husband he pretended to be. "How was your day?" he asked. I forced a smile. "Great, just the usual." He nodded, oblivious. It disgusted me how effortlessly he lied. After dinner, as he sat in the living room scrolling through his phone, I casually mentioned something. "Oh, by the way, I was thinking of going on a little trip next weekend, just a spa retreat." He barely looked up. "Sounds nice. You deserve it." I knew exactly what he was thinking. He'd use my absence to spend the weekend with Vanessa, and that was exactly what I wanted. The trap. When the weekend arrived, I pretended to leave for my trip. Instead, I checked into a small hotel not far from where Dana had tracked Vanessa's usual meeting spots. With Dana's help, I had set up hidden cameras in the hotel lobby where Ethan and Vanessa had a reservation. I had also gotten in touch with a local news reporter, a woman who specialized in exposing fraud and scams. I waited in the shadows, my heart racing. Then, right on schedule, Ethan arrived with Vanessa. I watched as he wrapped his arms around her, whispered in her ear. She giggled, leaning into him as if she had him completely under her spell. And then, my moment came. I stepped forward, right into their view. Ethan's face turned ghostly pale. Vanessa looked confused, then wary. "Darling," I said sweetly, "I thought you were at your business retreat." He stammered, his mind racing for an excuse, but I didn't give him a chance. I turned to Vanessa. "And you must be Vanessa, though I hear that's not your real name, is it?" Her expression flickered, but she quickly masked it. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think you do." I pulled out my phone, playing a voice recording Dana had managed to obtain. A conversation between Vanessa and another man she had scammed in the past. It detailed exactly how she lured men in, drained their finances, then disappeared. Vanessa's eyes darkened. Ethan turned to her, his voice rising in panic. "What the hell is this?" And then came the final blow, the moment of poetic justice. The reporter I had called walked in, camera crew in tow. "We're here to expose a serial scammer who's been targeting wealthy men," the reporter announced. And it looks like she found her latest victim. Ethan looked from me to Vanessa, realization dawning. He had been played. I leaned in close to him, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "You thought you were betraying me, Ethan. Turns out you were the one being deceived all along." The hotel erupted in chaos. Security arrived. The news crew filmed everything. Vanessa tried to run, but the police were already on their way. Dana had tipped them off, providing all the evidence of fraud. And Ethan, he just stood there, watching his world crumble. I turned on my heel, walking away without looking back. For the first time in months, I felt free. The lesson adultery is a betrayal, but there are always deeper layers beneath the surface. Some people lie and cheat without a second thought, believing they'll never be caught. Others think they can manipulate those around them, only to find themselves being manipulated in return. But the truth always comes out. And sometimes karma has a way of delivering justice in the most unexpected ways. Chapter 5. Rebirth from the ashes. I walked out of that hotel with my head held high. The weight of deception finally lifted from my shoulders. But the storm wasn't over yet. The video of Ethan's humiliation went viral overnight. The local news station aired the segment exposing Vanessa's long history of fraud. Comments flooded in from men who had been scammed by her before. Some had lost thousands. Others had their lives turned upside down. As for Ethan, the fallout was immediate. His job found out about the scandal, and the company didn't want to be associated with someone who had been exposed in such a public way. Within 48 hours, he was fired, but the real devastation came when he realized the financial mess he was in. The consequences. The morning after the sting, I received an email from our bank. Ethan had withdrawn large sums of money over the past year, money that had gone straight into Vanessa's hands. I met with my lawyer that afternoon. "He's been financially reckless," my lawyer said, scanning through the documents I'd collected. "If you want, we can make sure he walks away with nothing." Nothing. The word tasted sweet on my tongue. For years, I had been the one managing our home, our life, our future. I had put my trust in Ethan, believing we were building something together. Now I saw the truth. He had been digging our foundation out from under me, one selfish choice at a time. And now he had lost everything. I filed for divorce the next day. The final confrontation. Ethan came home that night, his face gaunt, his arrogance shattered. "I lost my job," he muttered, sinking onto the couch. "Everyone at work saw the video. I'm completely screwed." I stood by the kitchen counter, arms crossed. "And whose fault is that?" His eyes snapped up, desperation flashing across his face. "We can fix this. We can move past it. Please, Emily." I almost laughed. Now he wanted to fix things. I tossed a thick manila envelope onto the table in front of him. "That's our divorce paperwork. Sign it." His hands trembled as he picked it up. "Emily, no. We can work this out." I tilted my head. "Oh, so you do believe in working things out? That's funny, because when you were sneaking around with Vanessa, I don't recall you being concerned about working things out." He clenched his jaw. "She lied to me, too. She scammed me." "And you expect sympathy?" I scoffed. "You betrayed me long before she betrayed you." I could see the realization hitting him, the understanding that he had not only lost Vanessa, but also me, our marriage, and everything he had built. "There's nothing left to save," I said quietly. His shoulders slumped. He knew I was right. With shaky hands, he signed the papers. I picked them up, nodded once, and walked away. I never looked back. A new beginning. The next few months were a whirlwind. The divorce was finalized swiftly, and I moved into my own apartment, free from the ghosts of our past. For the first time in years, I felt like me again. I started traveling, something Ethan had never wanted to do. I reconnected with old friends, spent time with family, and pursued passions I had long neglected. But most importantly, I learned a lesson. Betrayal is a painful teacher, but it also reveals the truth about people. Ethan had thought he could deceive me forever, but he never realized that lies always unravel in the end. And Vanessa, she was facing multiple fraud charges thanks to the men who came forward. Justice, in the end, had found her too. The message. If there's one thing I want others to take from my story, it's this: never ignore the warning signs. People who lie and cheat don't do it once. They do it because they believe they can get away with it. And if you let them, they will take everything: your trust, your love, your stability. But when the truth finally comes out, when their web of lies collapses, you must be strong enough to walk away. No second chances, no apologies, no looking back. Because the best revenge is living a life so good, so full, so free, that they become nothing more than a cautionary tale. The end.